you got for us, Dr. Mark?
Hey, thanks, Rico. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Am I stuck inside the Illuminati?
That part.
No, I'm okay. You guys can hear me. Great. Well, happy Friday, everyone. My story today comes from High Times, and it's entitled "Hemp Cannabinoids Could Be the Source of New Pesticides." A new study by researchers at Cornell University has found that cannabinoids could one day have applications as natural pesticides. Recent research into the potential uses of hemp shows that cannabinoids produced in the plant could one day be the source of new natural pesticides, according to researchers at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. The study by scientists at the School of Integrative Plant Science at Cornell Agritech's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, which they have a cool acronym, CALS, C-A-L-S, found that higher concentrations of cannabinoids in leaves of hemp plants showed less damage from chewing insects compared with other leaves that were less rich in cannabinoids. The researchers hope that the study further study could build on these initial findings to eventually produce new natural insecticides, most likely for use on non-edible plants only. The potential for using new pesticides on food crops seems highly unlikely at this point because of the pharmacological effects of cannabinoids, including CBDA, THCA, they say GBGA, which I'm absolutely certain they mean CBGA, which can be converted into THC, CBD, and CBG, respectively, with the addition of heat in a process known as decarboxylation. Larry Smart, a plant breeder and professor at CALS, says that the researchers have identified the intoxicating and medicinal effects of cannabinoids that are produced exclusively in cannabis plants since the compounds were first identified decades ago. But little research has been conducted to determine exactly why cannabis plants develop these compounds with more than more than 100 distinct substances. It has been speculated that these are defense compounds because they're primarily accumulating in the female flowers to protect seeds, which is fairly common in plants, Smart said. The senior author of the study, according to the report in Hemp Today. But no one has put together a comprehensive set of experimental results to show the direct relationship between the accumulation of these cannabinoids and their harmful effects to insects. The research was conducted as part of Cornell's hemp breeding program, which was launched by the Ivy League University in upstate New York in 2017. The program began its work by evaluating different commercially available hemp cultivars so recommendations could be made to farmers about what varieties are best to suit local soil and climate. The researchers noticed that varieties of hemp from a breeding program in the Ukraine, that's very interesting, strains from the Ukraine, did not produce cannabinoids but were highly susceptible to damage from Japanese beetles. Oh yeah, Japanese beetles will tear that stuff up. Other hemp varietals that produce cannabinoids were not similarly prone to the damage from the insects. The absence of cannabinoids, we saw heavy insect damage, and the presence of cannabinoids, we saw much less insect damage, said Smart. The researchers then isolated CBDA and CBGA for use in controlled insect feeding studies. THCA was not a part of the research because of the federal limits on THC that prevents Cornell researchers from working with the compound. The cannabinoid extracts were added to artificial insect diet in varying concentrations, and the researchers found that the insect larvae grew less and had lower rates of survival as the concentration of cannabinoids were increased. So that shows what's called a dose-response effect. The higher the dose of cannabinoids, the more potency their insecticidal action was. The study gives us insight into how cannabinoids function in natural systems and can help us develop new THC-compliant cultivars that maintain these natural built-in defenses against herbivores, said George Stack, a postdoctoral researcher in Smart's lab and one of the authors of the study. The researchers plan on further investigation to determine if sap-sucking insects such as aphids are also adversely affected by cannabinoids. However, Stack noted that the research is hindered by the continued illegality of marijuana at the federal level. The potential use of cannabinoids as a pesticide is an exciting area for the future, but there will certainly be regulatory barriers due to pharmacological activity of the compounds, and we need and more studies are needed to understand what pest cannabinoids will be effective, Stack said. Study cannabinoids as in defense as chewing herbivores in cannabis was published in October in the peer-reviewed journal Horticulture Research. So this is super interesting because I think we know that cannabinoids are safe for humans. So certainly if you develop pesticides, and pesticides are nasty chemicals that kill bugs and keep bugs from destroying plants and food crops and whatnot. If we could use cannabinoids in replace of these other insecticides, we know that even though they point out in the article it probably won't be applied to food products, well, that's because of the whole, ooh, these are cannabinoids and it might be scary. What makes a insecticide today is not necessarily a compound that kills bugs, but it's a compound that, when applied, kills the bugs, but by the time that food and produce makes it to market, the pesticide has been either degraded by sunlight or been degraded by hydrolysis from rainwater, so a lot of these insecticides are built to fall apart. They're built to sort of have their action when the farmer sprays them, but then ultimately not have contaminated residuals in the food that you're trying to protect. But I see this as a very exciting development, and one of the other reasons why they need the government to delist cannabis, because obviously cannabis's illegality kind of hampers this kind of research. But this is a very, very important research and might provide value to other markets for cannabinoids other than human consumption. If we could replace toxic pesticides that are basically not only killing bugs but killing the soil to which they're applied, and we could replace that with cannabinoids. We know that cannabinoids make good bug food eventually, and they're degraded by bacteria and soil bacteria and whatnot. So I think that products that would be using this technology would ultimately be safe and provide more value to farmers who raise cannabis for a living. So that's my thoughts here on the shores of Lake Champlain on this wonderful Friday afternoon. I'd be interested in what my other correspondents have to say here on High at 9 News.
Is there sex in the Champlain room?
Champlain was a French explorer who thought he discovered a lake that natives knew about for many years. So
yeah, it doesn't count though until a white man finds it or says it out loud, right?
That's right. But they certainly get to name the lake after him, and they've named the university after him. And
I think anyway, this is a fantastic story.
Colonizers.
This is a fantastic story, Dr. Mark, and I'm so glad that you shared this with us, because I don't think we would have found it without you covering this.
Well, and this is
It's really cool to think that, again, there's cannabis varieties that, because of the terpene expression profile in those varieties, they're less susceptible to different pests like powdery mildew. And so what we find is that, there's a reason why these compounds evolved in the glandular trichomes of the plant. I think it was to attract humans, and I've said this all before. While it's true that terpenes drew humans to cannabis, it was the cannabinoids that made them stay. So, the cannabinoids could have this insecticidal activity. They're antifungal. They have antibacterial activity, and so we know that these things, like vitamins, serve many roles in their interaction with biological systems. It would be great if we could replace a synthetic pesticide product being sold by Syngenta, Bayer, or DuPont with a CBD or THC or CBG kind of molecule. That would just be wonderful.
Our horticulture instructors have been teaching these concepts for 2 decades about it helping. It's also with a bit of sun protection, but absolutely insecticide. The THC helps repel insects. And I want to really underline 2 things. Number one, aphids love cannabis, so I would question that one. But how repellent they are with aphids. But with respect to food, you underlined the use of cannabinoid or just the effect of pesticides on food. And foods that we commonly consume, these pesticides that are approved, are to eat the food, not to set it on fire and inhale it, mainlining it into your bloodstream, crossing the blood-brain barrier. And so we also really have to take a look at the method of ingestion, because what's safe for food in your cast iron stomach that can handle just about anything is not the same for your lungs. It's not designed to be that same barrier against a lot of these poisons we commonly consume. And so the idea of being able to utilize cannabinoid-based pesticides for cannabis as well is exciting, because this is an issue as states outlaw, and in some cases they should, because it's not been properly investigated in this context that I just mentioned of how humans are consuming it, that we really have an opportunity to change our entire food system and health of where we grow our food and the food web. It's really mind-blowing, and it's also just kind of fucking infuriating that we have blocked this research for so long and gone the other direction that is just killing our planet and ourselves slowly. More quickly.
Well, and you got to believe that this too provides evidence that there's an endocannabinoid system in these insects, and somehow these compounds are acting on it in a way that the insects don't like. Maybe they get disoriented, or maybe they can't find their next meal and they die.
Every vertebrate and invertebrate that we have studied, including plants, have at the very least rudimentary endocannabinoid systems. And the oldest living creature on Earth, the hydra, it's like a jellyfish looking thing that lives in the sea, is something like over 96% similar to our own. We all have an endocannabinoid system, and I completely agree with you. I think the research opportunities, the business opportunities, the pharmacological opportunities, can we not keep it illegal for just adult use at the same time that we study all of these amazing things, is my question.
Yes. I mean, I feel you, Dale. But I really, really love this story. This is great.